Hey there guys, how's it going? My name is Sumit Chatterjee from the Flow Zone Academy and I'm a flow state coach, which means that I help you feel better and perform better. Today I want to speak about the martial arts concept of Mushin, which is the mind without mind, the mind of no mind. It's also been called the empty mind. Empty your mind, be formless, shapeless like water, okay? As Bruce Lee says. So I love Mushin as a concept because it very much so relates to the flow state. If you look at this concept of Zen mind and you understand what it means, it really lets you let go of something inside of you. It takes away the shackles in a sense. Because the mind is shackles, right? The mind just holds things in place. It wants to categorize, it wants to understand things, it wants to reason with things. It wants to have a reason all the time. It needs to have different things for it to do, otherwise, it's going to start running its own programs. It's kind of wild, right? It's kind of disobedient. We need to start to domesticate it in a certain sense. So I've gotten a lot of these concepts from Alan Watts as he talks about Mushin, but I've given my own spin to them. So a lot of the things that I say, I'm referencing him, but then I'm adapting it in my own words for you guys to understand it a lot simpler, as well as giving my own interpretations of what he's saying. Okay. In Zen or Chan, this idea of no mind is very powerful, and it's also said to be no heart. However, it's not so much as being mindless or heartless in the sense of how it would be directly translated, right? But it would rather be something more like empty mind, empty heart, or open mind, open heart. With an empty mind, anything can grow from there. It has potential. From that blank space, there can be anything new that can come in. And there's a lot of different concepts and ways we can understand this. Alan Watts is using this example of one who hesitates is lost, one who's spontaneous is the winner, in a sense. And that's my own understanding of what he said. Is that if you're constantly hesitating, if you're constantly like, oh, I'm not sure what to do, in that sense of maybe, you're going to be in the split mind. However, in no mind, it doesn't have any kind of arguments there. We can understand Mushin from the example of fencing that he gave, where, this guy who was practicing fencing, he was staying with the master, and basically he would give him like four bamboo sticks all tied together, and he would just attack him at random times, and he would have to protect himself. So he would constantly be on this alert mode, right? On guard. He would be hesitating. There would be tension in a lot of those moments, but he was practicing, I think, in my own understanding, he was practicing desensitizing himself to that danger and that feeling of anxiety, right? Where, oh man, anything can happen. Like, someone bursts through the door and tries to attack me right now, I will have a response quickly to do that, right? And that puts you in this headspace where you're like, anything can happen, and you are completely spontaneous and on edge, which is also putting you in the zone because risk is a flow trigger, right? In a sense. It's also like in movies we've seen this, like in Pink Panther they do that, right? I think he attacks him, his partner attacks him, and it's the same in that one movie also, Why Him, with James Franco, I believe, as well, where the guy attacks him, right? And he has to protect himself. No mind is a mind of no expectation. You're not there to put your ideas on things. You're not there to formulate something or create something. But in fact, it is a creative state. You're not trying to create, but creation happens. They explain it like the mind of a mirror. The mind of a mirror, because it creates nothing, it refuses nothing, but it reflects everything. Okay, it reflects everything. So if you're thinking of a fight, the person attacking, you're reflecting their movements. And as you reflect, you also deflect. And it becomes this pure state of awareness where you're completely just in your reactions. I believe it's instinct plus awareness. Have you ever seen like a comedian perform and he's on stage and, a heckler from the audience tells him something? And he can quickly respond to that thing and be able to just, give a zinger back. That kind of level of improvisation, quick-wittedness of what that comedian has. They call it the forever box, right? When the comedian is just in the zone. And jokes are just hitting one after another. That's a great example of Mushin, right? A great example. Because he's able to think fast. And Mushin requires training. It doesn't happen overnight. That's why, someone attacking you one day, you won't expect it. It might go fumbly, right? It's wobbly still. But then you can either walk or run and not wobble, right? You want to walk or run. You gotta decide and not have a choice. Krishnamurti calls it choicelessness, okay? Because choice is like A or B, that's anxiety, where you're still making a choice. But this is a state of anti-anxiety. You aren't necessarily doing the task is doing you. Okay? Does this make sense? So you are not trying to paint, but the painting is allowing you to paint. You're merging with the painting, and it's allowing you to become the object that you're trying to create with, right? It's like you merge your ego with the moment, right? And that's what flow is, essentially, right? When you're in the recording studio, you become the microphone. You're the rock climber, you become the rock that you're climbing. You merge with it. You become one with it. And this is the power of Mushin. And it doesn't mean you give up thinking, right? It doesn't mean anti-intellectualism. But it's just understanding that the mind is a feedback system. And feedback is particular susceptibility to nervousness. And it is called a nervous system. Attachment or blocking, all of this creates anxiety. But what I loved is what Alan Watts said is, we get better ears and better eyes with an open mind. So all of our senses get heightened. And a very great example of Mushin is if you watch the movie Last Samurai, where he says, you think too much, no mind, right? In that one scene, I do remember it's very powerful. And in a lot of movies, you'll also notice time slowing down, time distorting. It's also a great example of Mushin, okay? The swordsman example is very powerful, right? Miyamoto Musashi has this example of, being this master swordsman, and it's like he is able to think on his feet, be so quick-witted because he has that danger involved, right? Because one slice and you get injury or you die. So the consequence is real. The urgency is real. So for you to be in the flow state, you need to give yourself an urgency. The stakes are high, and I'm in it. And it's the now mind, right? It's not the past or the future mind, it's the now mind. And when you understand that power of that spontaneity and that improvisation in that now mind, and you can quickly be in that pocket, be in that zone, be in that flow state, then you can truly understand this ultra instinct state where you're completely absorbed and you allow whatever needs to come up, and you start to slowly evolve, and it becomes second nature to you, right? It requires training, but then it becomes natural. And when it becomes natural and spontaneous, you become like that comedian on stage. Whatever people throw at you, you can just, boom, give it back to them. So like a Kung Fu Panda approach, right? They give you something, you give it back. They give you something, you give it back. And it becomes this swift way of dealing with rejection, dealing with, hesitation, dealing with objection, dealing with people's hesitation, dealing with your own hesitation, becoming like that water, becoming that wave, not being attached to anything, but being fully open in your heart and in your mind to create this spaciousness, right? This spaciousness and this radiance. And that's what flow is. That's what Mushin is. I know I've broke it down very philosophically and in depth for you, but this is how I understand it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have an amazing day. May the flow be with you and stay legendary. See you next time.